Did you ever watch a Harry Potter movie but wish that it was worse in every conceivable way possible? Our souls get lost in the river as we watch the mystical adventures of Billy Owens today on
The fuck is this?
Did I ever tell you about my encounter with Harold the Crabman?
No, Jameson. No, please recount all the details of your encounter with Harold the Crabman. What a way to start an episode.
Absolutely. This is something that happened to me back in 2017. I was just hanging out with some of my friends, and I get a text message from a number I didn't recognize and from someone I don't know. I instantly fell in love with the text, and it's been saved on my phone ever since. I am going to read off this text exactly as it's written,
all right,
with all its missing punctuation and grammatical mistakes.
It was an unrelated number. It didn't come up as Crabman on your phone? Or
No.
Right.
Incoming crab message. No. It goes as such. Hello, it's Harold. Told you, the letter U, we're gonna pick up crab. I can meet you, again the letter U, I can meet you somewhere lowercase I live by the gym. So again, hello, it's Harold. Told you we're gonna pick up crab. I can meet you somewhere I live by the gym.
What did you text him back?
I did.
Okay.
My response.
Keep going. This is all good.
Sounds good. Also, I think you have the wrong number. His response. Lol, I was given this number. We're at a memorial anyways. I have cleaned crab for sale. Vac packed, lol.
And then?
And that's it.
That was it.
That was my interaction with Harold the Crabman.
Man, what a missed opportunity, man. Like,
I know, right?
Man, you could have gotten some sweet vacuum-packed crab. What were you thinking?
From some dude who lives by the gym once he's done at his buddy's memorial service.
Do you know how hard it is to find good crab in this economy?
I know, right?
Do you have the number saved in your phone? You know what? Text him back right now. Text him back right now. Say that you have a friend. You do have a friend who's genuinely interested in some vacuum-packed crab. See if the deal is still there going on, and see if he wants to deliver.
I will.
I'll wait.
I'll give you the number too. How about that? Like, I'll spread Harold's love around.
The podcast will wait until we find out about the deal on vacuum-packed crab. I'll wait.
And then we'll get him on the show, and he can, plug his wares, his vacuum-packed crab. What I want to do, actually, is wait 10 years to the day that I got that text, and then just ask him back, hey man, that offer's still good for the crab meat.
And then 3 weeks later, someone writes back and says I don't know how to tell you this, but Harold he had a horrible allergy to seafood, and it was a bad business for him to be. It was an
awful vacuum sealer related accident. His memorial service is today. It's by the gym. Come by, we'll give you some crab.
All right, I have no idea how to transition into this, so we'll just go, hello, however you wish to self-identify, and welcome back to The Fuck Is This, where we dive through DVD bins, sort through streaming apps to find the weird, the bizarre, and the vacuum-packed. I am your host, Kaz Lesgard. Joining me always is my co-host, Jameson Rafter.
Hey, everybody.
Jameson, how's your morning? Do you have a nice breakfast?
I had my usual pre-podcast.
It doesn't matter how your morning was, because it's the 5th month of the year, and once again that means it's time for WrestleMania! Yes, it's the third annual time that we go around in the month of May just watching movies starring wrestlers. We're doing it again. We are nothing if not creatures of habit. And today, oh boy, we got one hell of a movie to talk about. We are once again
call it a movie.
Oh boy, we are once again diving in to the filmography of the patron saint of WrestleMania, the great Rowdy Roddy Piper,
wrestler that we've featured on this show, because he's probably has the most robust filmography of any WWF WWE superstar. Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Yes, let's go with robust. That's certainly a word we can use here. And to talk about today's movie, which, of course, you know because you clicked on the episode, is The Mystical Adventures of Billy Owens, directed by Mark McNabb. Which there's So many things to say, and we'll get to that in a minute. But before we do, let's introduce our very special guest. He is a podcaster and a poet. And yeah, I'm not saying that in any sort of complimentary, hyperbolic way. He is a literal published poet. You can buy books of his poetry online. He's also the host of the podcasts Friendless and Raised by the Movies, James Avramenko. Hey, buddy, thanks for coming on the show.
Man, I love that. I love that you said, I don't say that remotely complimentary.
Yeah, thanks for being on our show, man. I must apologize for my co-host here.
First, he's a fucking poet. What a loser.
I just mean to say in the sense that, like sometimes when someone is introducing a friend, he's saying, like he's a lover, he's a scholar, he's a poet.
Yeah,
It's like lots of people.
Yeah.
Lots of people like
He's
to.
here today rather than being out looking for a real job.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited to be on here. I love the show. I love the idea. Well, love is maybe not the right word.
Especially after that intro that Kaz gave you. Yeah,
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by the commitment to the show with you two, especially after watching this movie. The most reoccurring thought, maybe we'll get to this later, but I'll say it here now. Like the most reoccurring thought I had throughout the entire movie was, wow, these guys do this every week. Like I couldn't fathom watching a movie like this again and again and again and again and again. Like it was a chore, and it was an adventure of a kind. But I'm glad to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thanks. Well, we're not, like that big of masochists. I say we usually average doing this maybe like once every other week, and the movies do vary in quality. This is definitely lower in terms of quality movies that we watch.
Yeah, we started out the year watching some interesting to very good movies.
Oh, nice.
And this is our penance.
Yes.
Right.
Now the pendulum is swinging the other way.
Yeah. I feel like it's because I always notice, I especially notice the post when you do these wrestling months. I've seen it in the past. I know you did a Kurt Angle movie, and so I'll always clock those ones, and I'll be like, oh, why would you do that to yourselves? Like, why, like.
Because nobody else is doing this, and we're providing a service to the community. People need to know what, two jackasses have to say about a Kurt Angle movie from, 2017.
Yes, there's
fucking jacked up on pills. And
there's not enough white man film criticism online currently right now, so we're trying our hardest to fill that void.
I was gonna say, yeah, you're really filling a niche here of riffing on bad movies.
I can't believe no one else has ever thought of this.
Never heard of that before. No, never.
No one else is out there making a podcast where we recount all of the events of the movie from beginning to end, and then at the very end, we say whether or not we recommend the movie, even though we've given away every plot detail, so there's literally no reason to watch the movie at that point anymore.
It feels like, although I gotta say, it's one of those things where it's like, if everybody followed that line of thought, there would only be one cheeseburger in the world. It's like.
But what a hell of a cheeseburger!
Well, okay, fair enough. But I'm just saying, if Mr. Wendy's had eaten Mr. McDonald's cheeseburger and went, we've already got a cheeseburger in this world, we don't need another one, then we wouldn't have
there'd be no competition. Yeah.
And if Mr. Burger King hadn't tasted a JBC and said, it's like. You gotta have different flavors. It's okay to have the same idea. You do it with your own flavor, right?
Variety is the spice of life, and I think we gear towards like a more of the obscure.
Well, this is. I mean, I don't want to skip ahead too much, but it's like this movie felt more like a film school project, or actually maybe that's even a little too complimentary. It felt like something I probably would have made in about junior high with my dad's camcorder. But, it didn't really feel like a produced film. And so I don't know. I think that's what's really fun about this show is that you're tapping into, you're really shitting on those film school students, right?
Taking those kids down a peg.
Yeah, exactly.
How dare you cash in your Make-A-Wish to have a movie made about your creative writing project?
I mean,
Wow.
you've touched on something there, Jameson, where, and we'll get into this later when we recount the movie, but about midway through watching The Mystical Adventures of Billy Owens, I came to this conclusion where it's like, we're supposed to be riffing on this, we're supposed to be making fun of this, we're supposed to be talking about how terrible it is, but about midway through, it's like, I feel kind of bad. Like, I honestly feel kind of bad poking fun at this movie too much, because it's so unlike any other movie that I've seen in recent memory. It doesn't seem fair in certain respects to poke too much fun at this film, but I mean, we're going to try anyway because we're in the midst of it. What I will say is that I watched this movie late last night. Immediately after it, I was kind of in a daze, and as soon as it was done, I remembered, oh, right, the final episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier just came out, so I'll watch that as a bit of a palate cleanser. And I got about 20 minutes into the episode, and my brain still really wasn't able to process actual filmmaking by that point. Like, I had to, stop and pause, like, is this how story structure works? This movie kind of Billy Owens kind of broke me in the sense that I'm like, this is real, right? This is how plot progression works, in like a competent thing, right? It was, I needed like one of like those ambulance,
A fire blanket?
Yeah, like the
pressure blanket.
Yeah. Yeah, you've just been through a traumatic experience, and
I definitely had that same. It's funny because I had the same, just a different time shift, but I watched that and then I watched the Falcon, and I actually found myself being like, oh, they actually had all the pieces. They just did the pieces poorly. Although I will say, actually, I think that was more commentary on the Falcon and Winter Soldier wasn't all that great, but.
Yes, agreed.
Maybe that's a different episode, but it really showed that this Billy Smith, you could tell that whoever made it likes movies and really wants to make a good movie, but just didn't necessarily have the resources. I mean, I've got questions. When we get into the recap, I have questions about budget because they enlisted an entire town. And that's
It's like how the Music Man had that traveling con artist get the entire town in on this production.
Exactly. Like they literally, somebody behind the camera monorailed it,
Yeah.
And they just
So
except an actual movie was made, so it was a scam that went so far they actually produced a movie, and the scammer was looking at it and was all like, "Oh shit! Well, I guess I'll release this." I should have stopped like 2 steps ago. I should have left with my suitcase full of money, but I guess we have like a full movie here.
No, what happened was the traveling con man skipped town, and the town was so downtrodden, and then someone, probably either Billy Owens or Rowdy Piper, was like, you know what? We worked hard on this. We're going to release this thing anyway, as it is. What do you say, everybody? Yeah, let's do it.
I love how your 2 examples there, Jameson, were Roddy Piper and fictional child character Billy Owens. Those were the 2 driving forces behind this movie, yes.
What is his name again? I wrote Billy Smith. What is his name?
Billy Owens.
Billy Owens. Okay, I literally, the top of my page, I was like, The Adventures of Billy Smith. So, right out the gate, I'm on a bad foot here.
I don't know how you could have made that mistake. They say the name Billy Owens at least 80 times in the movie, so.
They do, yeah.
Oh, we should point out that, we're changing the format a little bit with this episode. We're not pausing to watch the movie. We pre-watched the movie last night. Each of us pre-watched it on our own time. I think in an effort to be even more of a knockoff of How Did This Get Made?
Well, early on, we sort of wanted to differentiate ourselves from the other, weird movie podcasts by sort of making it a movie screening type podcast. And that was sort of helped by the fact that we started off with 1 laptop, 1 microphone. It was just a bunch of people sitting on a couch watching a movie, and we carried that over into our pandemic recording episodes. But we're 50 episodes in now, and I think we just wanted to try this out to make ourselves a little more like all the other movie watching podcasts, and just in an effort to
you just gotta
streamline.
make your own cheeseburger, man. It's all you gotta do. You gotta make your own cheeseburger.
Well, You know, James, it's rather appropriate that you compare our podcast to fast food, because you are also a podcaster. You have two different podcasts, both of which that I am quite a big fan of, but like, you are one step up from us in terms of the food-based metaphor. You're not quite like the fine dining of podcasts, but you're like an Earl's. You're like a Cactus Club of podcasts.
Shit. I'm an Earl's? That's a big compliment.
Hey man, nothing wrong with Earl's, man. Earl's Test Kitchen. Wow. That is some good food there. Some good quality food at reasonable prices. That's how I would describe your podcast. You know, you just have like a level of like professionalism that we're not quite at yet. You have like ad reads and sponsors and stuff, and So
I mean, that's all.
We're still trying to land that Earl sponsorship by the sound of it.
I mean, but buddy, I mean, I gotta say, that's me just bumble-butting my way through this stuff, right? Like, because that's like, I lucked out, getting to become a member of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network, and, big shout out to them. Love those guys. Yeah, and then just being like, here, read these, and like, at the end of a couple months, we'll send you a little bit of money, and it's just like, you know, and like nothing, you know, there's also that sort of fallacy of like, I think it's like a social, I mean, look, this is the whole root of one of my shows. Friendless is about Facebook and the sort of the way that it alters our perception of relationships, interaction, and those kinds of things. And I think that it creates a false image of success when we see somebody doing something that they like doing. We immediately assume that they must be getting paid for it, and they must be more successful than us, and they must be more financially secure than us. But for me, it's like, I would be doing it no matter what, because it's fun. And I'm really lucky that I've now got the support to like cover my, like, it essentially covers my, like, my like hosting fees. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like, this isn't paying my bills or anything like that. Anybody who makes money off a podcast is either a sociopath or lying to you. Like, there's no money here.
No, the only people who make money off of podcasts are the podcasters who have been doing it for so long that it is, exactly. and they've built up the fan base that is their sole source of income. And of course, they've built it up to a point where they have multiple shows going on their maybe they've started a podcast network of their own. They tour, they do live shows, and we are like decades away from being at that level, Jameson. If we ever attain it at all,
ever get to that, yeah.
And also, like, I often ask myself the question: do I even want that level of popularity? Because the internet is such a minefield of toxicity, and people like attack, people dogpile on content creators, people try to cancel people for weird fucked up reasons. Basically, if you've ever done or said anything stupid, people will just like immediately pull apart everything. Not saying that there aren't people who absolutely deserve to be canceled, but there are also a lot of people that don't deserve that kind of negative impact. And I often ask myself, why would you ever want to be a content creator? And here we are creating content. So I hope we never become successful, basically, is the crux of what I'm trying to say there.
But that's good, though, right? That's good, because that means that you're creating out of a basis of desire and joy, right? Like, you're doing it because you like it, not because you think it's gonna, you know, pay your bills or please the right people or anything like that. Like, you kind of, you have to trust that creative impulse, right?
Yeah, I've been churning out content, be it like a cartoon or podcast like this, for the better part of 10 years now. And I've never really seen a dime for it, but at the same time, you know, I have these ideas and no one is going to make my projects for me. So I have a very good day job. I have a good network of family and friends that'll support me. And that's really, and as long as I'm able to put my work out, I'm totally happy with where I'm at.
Yeah. Bingo.
Yep.
Yeah, but now it's time to prove me wrong, because it's time for us to talk about Billy.
So before we dive into the mystical adventures of one William Owens, James, when I was booking you for this episode, I asked you if you are a fan of wrestling, and you responded, "Well, that's a bit of an understatement." Do you want to do you want to explain that? What is your background with wrestling, and can you explain your love and affinity for it?
Oh my God, how much time do you have? Absolutely. So I mean,
we'll cut around the boring stuff, and we'll just, you know, we'll put this like front. Everything we've said up until now, we'll just cut, and we'll start with this.
So I grew up in Calgary, which is a big wrestling city because it's where the Hart dynasty comes from. So the patriarch is Stu Hart, who then had like I think it's 12 kids. Many of them went on to be wrestlers.
He had like a wrestling gym in his basement. And,
exactly. There was a famous. It was called the Dungeon in the basement of his house inside at the Hart home, and Bret Hart is his most famous son. He's the most successful. He was the WWF champion. And then I know Bruce Hart Jr. pretty well. And his dad was a substitute teacher at my high school. He's really, really, really cool guy. I got to shoot the shit with him lots. And so, growing up in Calgary, it was all Harts, all WWF, loved WWF. And then right when I was like, junior high, high school, it was sort of the peak of like what was called the Attitude Era, which is like Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, those kinds of guys. DX, a whole generation of teachers just tortured by all the kids across the world telling them to suck it and all that kind of stuff.
All the kids coming to school with Austin 316 t-shirts on. Exactly. I remember that.
Hell yeah. Right, but so, I was right in the mix of it, loved it, played all the video games, did all the moves on kids at recess, got into trouble for that, and then it waned, right, as things do when you're a kid, it waned, but when I went to university, in one of my summer courses, I ended up taking a theater history class that was pro wrestling as theater. So it was studying the art of the story behind a wrestling match, because it's got roots in Del Arte style theater. It's got roots in, ancient Greek theater. Like there's a whole extended passage where the class starts there's a whole extended passage in the Iliad where there's a wrestling competition and one of them throws the competition. So it's literally the first example of rigging the outcome. So pro wrestling has been with our culture since the beginning. And I just became so fascinated with the way that, these guys are so athletic and are so larger than life. Their comic books come to life, right? And it's soap opera, right? It's soap opera and it's exciting and it's emotional. And I so many people will detract it by saying it's fake. And the fact of the matter is that there's nothing fake about it. It's just that the outcome is determined. Nobody goes to Hamlet and says, "Fuck you, you're not really dying, man. This is fucking bullshit, man. Why didn't you cut off Macbeth's head, man? This is bullshit," right? Like, it's a dumb thing to say about wrestling that it's fake, because it's really fucking not. But anyway, so out of that class, I became obsessed with it and have been ever since. And I'm a diehard. I have since migrated away from WWE because they're a pretty fucking terrible company. But there's a new company out that started a couple years ago called All Elite Wrestling, AEW. Yeah, I'm actually wearing a Orange Cassidy shirt right now. And
and a friend of mine, Scott, who's been on the show, he's a big fan of all the other wrestling companies like New Japan and Lucha Underground and AEW.
Best.
Yeah, and they're just doing everything so much better than WWE.
Big time. And it's neat because it's like coming back to the heart of what's fun about wrestling, which is like fake fighting and soap opera and like caring about the people you care about and wanting them to succeed and then them losing and you feel it bad and they've got the quest for them, and it's just fun. It's fun shit. It's a fun blow off. It's an energy blow off. It's also changing. It's becoming much more it's trying to become much more inclusive. It's trying to be more representational of larger swaths of our culture. And, there's trans wrestlers. There's, openly gay wrestlers. There's all kinds of, the women's division is way more robust and respected and not quite so like bra and panties match and all that kind of shit anymore, right? So it's changing. It's still got a long way to go, as the vast majority of culture does, but like where it's at today is so different from where it was, when I was growing up, that it's really exciting. And wrestling is just the coolest. It's the coolest fucking thing you can watch, because it's every form of performance but dumbed down, so it's more fun. Because it's total trash art, but it's a blast because it's like you get to where else do you get to scream at the actors? Where else do you get to like cheer and boo and have these big cathartic releases? And where else do you get to really invest the way, and then be really respect them too? Really when you see somebody do some crazy ass move and it's just so amazing and you get to clap for them. And anyway, yeah, it's, I feel like I've now spun out. I'm talking so long.
That's fine. No,
the fucking best. I echo those sentiments exactly. I think pro wrestling is criminally underappreciated as far as an entertainment medium goes. And it's not fake. It's certainly scripted, but those are really like 280-pound dudes doing backflips off 10-foot tall ladders onto another dude. Yeah, you really are just watching a live stunt show.
Yeah. You haven't lived until you've seen a 300-pound man do a backflip off the top of off the third rope. It's the most breathtaking thing you could see in person. It's stunning.
Yeah, no, fake is absolutely a misnomer. You mentioned a while back about, investing in certain wrestlers and cheering for your favorites. Did you have and do you currently have any favorite wrestlers? Anyone that you admired? To borrow another question from a far more successful podcaster, who are your wrestling guys?
My guys, my boys. So my guy back in the day, like growing up, my guy was Mick Foley, Mankind, aka Cactus Jack. He was my guy. He was like the consummate underdog, right? Scrappy, tubby, like didn't really have any right to be in the main event, but absolutely deserved to be in the main event, that kind of thing, right? Like, and just like the way he just put his body on the line every time, it was incredible. And I just have such a respect for him. He's actually, not only did he inspire me as like a wrestler and a performer, he also inspired me as a writer. He went on to write some of the most like influential landmark wrestling biographies, and he's just like an all-around incredible person, Mick Foley.
Yeah, everything I've ever
nowadays
read about Mick Foley, that he's apparently like one of the nicest people to ever come through the professional wrestling circuit. Very, very
he seems
modest
to have been
and humble.
very genuine.
Yeah.
Exactly. He seems to have been very genuine. He seems to have been very level-headed. I did meet him once, but it was at a signing, and the line had been oversold, so we were going long, and he was getting really stressed out. So by the time I got to meet him, he was kind of a dick, but I understand in context why he was stressed out and why he was a little short with me, but it was still pretty fucking magic to get to shake, my hero's hand, right?
And it's tough. It's tough to meet that many people in like 2 hours or whatnot. Like it's
stay genuine.
Yeah. We expect so much from our celebrities, but at the end of the day, we're just people, and we get tired, and we don't want to like see people at the end of the day. So yeah.
And this guy has
like
had,
every other person
that's
in the
the thing.
world. They get tired and they get cranky.
Exactly. You also add the number of head injuries that he's received.
Yes.
I can't imagine he has a very long fuse, so it's like, which is all fine and dandy. I did like no judgment on him whatsoever. But then like in terms of like modern day stuff, like the modern day, like, the two guys who I adore, at WWE, there's a guy named Big E Langston, who I absolutely love.
From the New Day.
From New Day. He's one of those guys who just seems to be super genuine, super engaged, super tuned in to like he may not necessarily be the greatest wrestler, but like who he is as a person really shines through in his characters and in his performances, and I adore him.
I actually met Xavier Woods. Of the New Day. Yeah. And he's a great guy. Like he's totally embraced like geek culture and the gamer community. And he was at EVO, which was this fighting game tournament in Vegas that I joined two of my friends in going to. And he was hosting this tournament of a super old Super Nintendo game called Windjammers. And I got a video taken with him playing against my friend Joel. And he just seems like the nicest guy in the world.
That whole little team,
awesome.
That whole New Day team seemed really cool. Yeah. And also, the up, down, down stuff that they do, and just like the way that they're trying to sort of bridge out of wrestling, I think is phenomenal. But I also don't watch a lot of WWE these days because Vince McMahon is a fucking hell person, but,
he's a sociopath. He's a terrible man.
Actually, funny story, just very, very recently about Roddy Piper. Just recently he was doing an interview for A&E, and Vince McMahon pretended to answer the phone, receiving a call from Roddy Piper, who was waiting for him in hell. So that kind of shows you the kind of person Vince McMahon is. But my number one guy right now in AEW is this guy Kenny Omega, who's he's a Canadian. He's from Winnipeg. He's currently, as of this recording, he is the champion. And funny enough, he's the polar opposite of all these other guys. He's a bad guy. He's a heel, they call him. That's the parlance. He's a heel. And but he's just like, he's one of those guys who's just like a workhorse. He's an incredible performer. The way he tells a story with his matches is unparalleled. Like just like his commitment to the art of essentially this form of dancing, right? Like the way he tells a story with his body is just like, it's like nothing we've ever seen before. He's putting on matches around the world that are like breaking rating systems, and like he received a 7-star match out of a potential 5-star, like he's just the kind of guy who's just completely dismantling expectations, and it's really exciting to be watching, Yeah, like you hear about people like getting to watch, Michael Jordan in his prime or Muhammad Ali in his prime, or, getting to witness an athlete in real time excel at the peak is always exciting, and it's always, you can't repeat it. Like, you can go back and watch those things, but it's different than living it, right? And so it's exciting to be able to watch a guy like this, like, in his prime, like, live.
Every time I try to go buy some Canucks tickets, the games that, like, sell out the fastest would always be, like, either teams from the original 6 era, or it would be, like, the Pittsburgh Penguins or the Edmonton Oilers. Because, like, even, like, the home team's fans will want to see, Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid, like, 2 of the best superstars in the game, play and just, like, work their magic.
Absolutely. It's so special just to watch those guys. That was always my dad's attitude whenever Gretzky came to town. We'd always buy, and we'd buy cheap seats, and the Flames would just get absolutely dismantled. But it was like, he'd always say, like, but you got to watch Gretzky, Yeah.
Oh yeah, and wouldn't that have been like sort of like the heydays of like the Battle of Alberta? So it's like you don't want to like this guy. But
it was more like it was in the dark times. It was when he was a king, when he was at the Kings, when he went to LA, when he'd come through as an LA King, and it would be the once or twice a year kind of thing, right? And everybody would have to go see, But
yes, I am also a fan of the sports. So we're moving on. No, sorry. This is a weird place for me to moderate because we do this this month of movies starring wrestlers. To give a bit of color to you, James, Jameson has identified himself as somewhat of a more casually wrestling fan. I don't really follow it at all. What I am a fan of is puns. So when I figured out that we could. When I figured out we could name the segment WrestleMania, then I was all in. Oh, it's perfect. But yeah, in terms of my history with wrestling, I was a fan of the N64 games, and because of that, I kind of watched a little bit during the Attitude Era. I was more into WCW than I was into WWF at the time. I watched the whole NWO era, and then around the time that WWE kind of
for life
golfed it all, that's when I sort of fell off of it. So yeah, this is our third time doing this, and I am pointedly still not that much of a wrestling fan, but this is good. This is all good.
Well, let's be honest here. It's not like the movies we watch on the show help. You're not going to suddenly become a fan because you watched the Adventures of Billy Owens.
No, yeah, these aren't good inroads for you.
Speaking of not being a fan of things, one thing that I know, James, that one wrestler that I know that you are not a fan of is the man of the hour himself, Roddy Piper. You said in our message that you do not like Roddy Piper. Do you want to maybe explain your dislike of Rowdy Roddy? I know listening to your podcasts that you hold grudges for weird reasons. As example, your hatred for Robin Williams because you had to watch Patch Adams twice when a girl stood you up on a date twice. Within the 2 weeks, which I'm just going to go ahead and say, not Robin Williams' fault. So why the Roddy hate? Why the Roddy hate, James?
Well, you know what? It really comes down to when I first encountered him, like, as a kid, he was a bad guy, so I just didn't like him. So technically, he was doing his job well, but he was never really wrestling when I was watching. And then when I have since, as an adult, gone back to watch his stuff, I've just never really liked it that much. He's also been he is infamously racist and homophobic in an industry that is infamously racist and homophobic. He did a very famous blackface promo at WrestleMania. So I've just never really had any interest in him. I know a lot of wrestlers in the business respect him because of his work rate and his performance skills, and I can understand that. I don't take that away from him, but every time I've encountered him, I've always been pretty put off by him. And then at the same time too, I feel like hate is the wrong term because someone like Robin Williams who may not deserve it, and I still do not like him for specific reasons. Roddy Piper has been more about I just have no interest in him, and I've always found that he has been this is going to sound so fucking pretentious of me, but he's always felt like an inroad for fans who don't actually like wrestling to say they like wrestling because they can say they like Roddy Piper because he was never the top guy. He was never all that great. He was always just sort of there, but for some reason his imagery has like permeated outside of the wrestling bubble, and it just, and it's just my little elitist being like, well, he's not very good, and that's not justified. It's not fair. It's where my dumb brain goes, right?
No, that's totally fair, and full cards on the table here. I was not familiar with his history of racism and homophobia. I feel like after 3 years of doing this, someone close to me, perhaps a friend or co-host, might have filled me in at some point in time. Of course, I could have done my own research as well, too. This may be the last year we cover Roddy Piper on the show.
Well,
we got our Roddy Piper trilogy going on here.
And it's not one of those things like I don't say this to forgive him or exonerate him, but I will also say that like he is coming from an industry that is historically and continually to this day very racist, very homophobic, very sexist, very ableist, like
lots of issues within
the things that can
profession.
be wrong with society are very ingrained in that culture, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you touched on something a little earlier, James, when you were saying that Roddy Piper kind of bleeds into the other consciousness for people who don't necessarily follow wrestling. I mean, I know from my perspective, I'm a big fan of the films of John Carpenter, and of course, he's got, like one of the top 10. He's the star of They Live. He's not great in that, but what he is he's memorable, and he knows how to deliver a one-liner incredibly well. And, we've covered him as many times on this show as we have, because he does have a remarkably diverse amount of films. He's probably been in more movies than any other wrestler. They're just not movies that anyone has ever heard of or ever seen, which makes him perfect for this podcast.
Yes. Well, I mean, I would argue Roddy Piper walked so Dwayne Johnson could fly. Like it was sort of the because he was the first one of all those guys to sort of break out of that, and even in this, he's not great, but he does have moments of genuine performance. You can tell he is a trained performer in a way that no one else in this movie is.
Well,
right?
and that's the perfect segue to start talking about today's film, The Mystical Adventures of Billy Owens. And I will echo your sentiments in that he is the most watchable person in this movie, but I think that has less to do with his talents as an actor and more to do with the fact that I don't think anyone else in this movie has ever had any acting experience. That has a lot to do with the fact that the majority of this cast are young children, but also the adults. I would be surprised if any of them had ever acted before someone stuck a camera in their face. As of this moment, none of them have any prior credits on IMDb that I can see. So yes, Jameson, you said that this was a movie that they borrowed an entire small town, and that is 100% what happened. Someone went to a community center, they put like a piece of paper up on a cork board, and like the first 20 people who put their names up got roles in the movie.
Yeah, like these kids were child actors who probably just like auditioned for a bunch of commercials. This was like their first, actual paying gig, and it's the kind of movie where like everything is first take.
Oh, yeah.
And the adults weren't so much actors as they were the people who worked in the buildings that the film crew needed to film in. And but there was a couple of times where it's like, hey, I'm the principal of this school, and I'm not going to allow you to film on school premises. And the filmmaker's like, well, what if we put you into the movie? Would that change your mind?
That was definitely the principal, right? That had to have been the principal. Okay, thank you. I literally was like, there's no way that person isn't the principal.
Hey everybody, for this week's shout out, I'd like to spotlight the Vancouver Homework Club Society, which offers 2 programs that change the lives of inner city youth on their paths to graduation and strong futures. Homework Club offers free high-quality tutoring to approximately 350 youth in a supportive environment that includes hot meals, computer and internet access, school supplies, transit tickets, and volunteer tutor mentors from local universities and the community. The youth engage engagement project focuses on youth more seriously at risk of dropping out and provides the one-to-one support of youth workers, financial incentives, employment opportunities, post-secondary bursaries, and monthly mentoring sessions. Both programs have been highly successful in supporting young people to engage with school and view graduation as an achievable goal. VHCS draws its students from Vancouver's poorest neighborhoods. Club programming is based on the premise that at-risk secondary students need both qualified academic tutoring and social development to succeed in school and life after school. Approximately one-third of their budget is administrative, while the remainder is directly in service of youth, including financial incentives, hot meals, bursaries, and youth workers. To donate to the Vancouver Homework Club Society, follow the link in our episode description or visit canadahelps.org/charities/Vancouver Homework Club Society. Alright, so, The Mystical Adventures of Billy Owens, as I mentioned, is directed by a person named Mark McNabb. His previous films to directing Billy Owens are all horror and action films. He directed films with titles like Dark Fields, which is about 5 teenagers who are stalked by a killer with an axe, and Study Hell, where a teacher snaps and kills teens in detentions, and Blind Eye, which is an action thriller so generic I can't even sum it up in a sentence, but it also stars Roddy Piper, so that's how he roped Roddy into doing this here. But post Billy Owens, he seemingly stopped making horror movies and has dove right into the family-friendly direct-to-DVD market, because he only makes kids movies now with titles like Junior High Spy and my personal favorite, Little Ghost Grabbers. And of course, all of these movies all star the exact child actors that are in Billy Owens. So he hit on something here, and he's all like, "This is money. This is right." Let's address the elephant in the room here. This is obviously a blatant attempt to cash in the immense popularity of the Harry Potter franchise down to a magical boy with a wand who has a little boyfriend and a little girlfriend, and they go on adventures, and they have some older wizened mentors, and there's an evil person. And there's a blonde-haired bully. That's about where the similarities stop. James, we know your affinity for wrestling. Do you hold any sort of affinity whatsoever to the Harry Potter franchise?
I mean, I did. I actually just realized I've only ever read any of them once. I read them as a kid growing up, and when they came out, I'd read them, and then they would sit on the shelf, and, I watched the movies. My wife and I actually just recently rewatched the series, the whole saga, and they're fine. I
didn't mean to interrupt you there. I just wanted to clarify something that you said. You can read books more than once?
I do all the time. It's great.
That's new information for me. I
actually quite like rereading books because I know what's going to happen, so it's a comfort for me. My little my ADHD brain loves knowing what's going to happen, so I can just enjoy the process. You know what I mean? It's a great comfort to me actually to reread books. But those Harry Potter books, I just never, they're fine. I like it. If you like them, that is great. I'm not trying to shit on anybody who enjoyed them. They're great. But I had a bit of a revelation because we rewatched the movies, and I in a fit of madness I decided I was going to reread the one that I remembered being my favorite, which is number 3, The Prisoner of Azkaban. And as I was reading it, I realized these books were written for readers who don't like reading books, but who like saying that they like reading books so that they can act superior to people. That's what the Harry Potter series is made for. It's people who actually hate books, but like the aesthetic of being a book lover.
Yeah, they're just after a really thick-looking book that looks really good sitting on their bookshelf.
That's exactly
right. I read the first 4 Harry Potter books when they came out, but then I think they started having really staggered releases. It used to be a new one every year, and then there would be a 3-year gap while we were waiting for J.K. Rowling to fart out another one. And I've only ever seen the first 3 movies, and I don't really have much of an interest in going back and finishing that series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when the last one came out in theaters, ramping up to going to see that one in theaters. I remember marathoning all of them from the first one to the last one, and I distinctly remember walking out of the movie theater after the last one, and I turned to my friend that I went to see the movie with, and I'm like, cool, that's the last time I'll ever watch any of those.
Yeah.
I don't. There's genuinely no reason to revisit these anymore now that I've seen them all again.
Yep.
And of course, as time and context has gone on, new things have come out about the author of those books, and now it's kind of soured the whole experience for me in that respect there.
But I think what we gotta ask is, how does Billy Owens compare, against Harry Potter? Because I gotta say, like, the world of Harry Potter is much more whimsical and imaginative, and the world of Billy Owens is very much like a public school version of Hogwarts.
Yes, yeah, big time. It's almost like it's somebody trying to ape a Harry Potter world, but who has no imagination whatsoever.
Yeah, just doing like the bare minimum of doing, like, a story of a magical boy. Yeah. I don't think they even ever finished writing this movie. Like, there are lots of scenes where, like, there's voiceover narrations kind of explaining what's been going on, and it's just, to kind of fill in the blanks, but it's always like, oh shit, we forgot to film, like, these integral scenes to the plot.
Well, and what's twice as annoying, Jameson, is the fact that this movie does have nigh constant narration all the way through it, but a lot of the times the narration is explaining shit that we as an audience already know, because it is narrated by the Hermione stand-in, sort of the
did you know it all girl, like the annoying tropey kids movie character that just would not shut up and would not be helpful. Like, God, I hated this little girl.
I can't remember the last time I watched a movie where I genuinely was screaming at the television, "Shut up, little girl." Like, I said that, like, maybe 5 or 6 times. It's just absolutely the word. And it goes back into me feeling kind of bad about, like, shitting on this movie and not liking it, because I'm yelling at little kids, and I'm sure the little girl, who I guess is almost an adult now at this point, because this movie came out in 2009, so, she can probably take it, and, this movie is, it's been on the internet for a while. It's somewhat infamous, so I'm sure she's come to terms with it. But, this little girl needed to shut the fuck up. She needed to shut the fuck up immediately from the first scene. It was amazing how immediately this movie annoyed me.
And, like, all of her, like, did you know little, like, factoids that she spouts out have practically nothing to do with what's going on in, like, the scenes that she brings them up in.
They're trying to make her the Hermione stand-in, and they're trying to make her, like, the bookworm and the know-it-all, but yeah, as you say, everything she's saying doesn't have anything to do with the situation they're currently in. They'll turn a corner and they'll see, the bully there, and she'll say some random fact about Paul Revere, and it's all like, that, what did that have to do with anything? That doesn't tie in to anything. So she becomes less of a Hermione character and more like Jonathan Lipnicki in Jerry Maguire. But the difference there is that that character was like 3. So it's cute when he does it, but when it's like a 10-year-old girl, you get the feeling that maybe there's something not quite right with her.
And, like, it's not the actress's fault. That's just how that character was written.
Yes.
But, like, it just doesn't matter. Like, I just wound up hating this kid.
Big time.
Shut the fuck up.
Shut up, little girl.
Well, she provides most of the movie's narration. She's recounting the most interesting summer of her life, even though the movie is called The Mystical Adventures of Billy Owens. It's not Billy Owens recounting his own story. But yeah, like, she falls back to just, like, explaining stuff to the audience that this movie just flat out can't show us. Like, sort of like the setting of the movie is that there's this river project that runs into some construction problems in this small town, but the movie never, like, shows you a clip of, like, a construction crew working. This movie has a real mantra of tell, don't show.
Yeah, alright, so the movie opens, we're automatically off to a bad start. I don't know if either of you noticed this, but I knew we were immediately in trouble where immediately following the opening production logo, when the opening production logo faded to black, it stayed on, like, a black screen for, like, at least 5 minutes, and there was just this droning dead air before we cut into, like, the opening credits. I'm all like, man, like, we're not even into the movie yet, and already we're off on a bad foot because there's just like this weird black noise that's happening here that clearly is just an editing mistake.
My very first note was the Foley work hits immediately because the very first thing is an overdubbing of them in a rowboat and them clearly over foleying the paddles, right? And everything in that scene is overdubbed, and it's very, very poorly mixed, and which is hard, you know. Again, this comes back to this thing. I made all these notes, and then I'm right there with you, Kaz, where it's like it's really hard to make a movie, and I feel like in the same and actually this is a sort of a philosophy that actually ties into wrestling, where it's like anyone who laces up their boots and goes into a ring and has a match deserves respect. No matter who they are, no matter what level they are, if they do it at WrestleMania or in a bar room, if you have wrestled, you deserve respect. And I feel like that type of philosophy should bleed into this, where it's like, it's really hard to make a movie. And if you tried, you deserve some form of respect. At the same time, too, you lost me at the first shot. Like, I literally, you know, and it's like, there's that thing of like, usually with a story, you've got like 5 minutes to keep my attention. Like you've got my attention for the first 5 minutes, but this one lost me on the first shot, first sound. I was already checked out.
And look, I don't want to. I feel like this criticism gets thrown around a lot in these type of podcasts that we do. But like, it is very hard to make a movie. And if I were to write and direct and shoot a movie tomorrow, it would turn out with the same quality as The Mystical Adventures of Billy Owens. I think the difference is that I don't have enough hubris to assume that I could write and direct a movie. So, yeah, you have to give a little bit of respect to the filmmakers in the sense that they put this together and they released it. And the other thing that we haven't mentioned is that there's like an entirely other Billy Owens movie. This movie has like a direct sequel to it. Yes, which we will not be covering, Jameson. I know this movie ends on a massive cliffhanger, but you know what? I'm not that compelled to find out what happens. But, yeah. So, the opening shot of this movie is, Roddy Piper, who is playing a character named,
William Thurgood.
William Thurgood, which is a great character name to give to Roddy Piper, invoking one of the great black heroes of our time.
I actually wrote, hey, Roddy doesn't have blackface on. It's either too early or too late.
So William Thurgood is in a boat. He's in a small boat paddling down a creek. With another character named Victor Mold, which is a funny name.
I can't believe you caught all these names. I'm so impressed.
Well, I have them written down. I also have like the IMDb thing here. Victor Mold, who is the villain of the movie. Victor Mold is a funny name until you consider the fact that the actor playing this role is named Paul Germs. And Victor and William are, clearly some sort of magicians of some sort. They're paddling down this lake. Roddy is yelling at Victor, saying like, "We have to get out of here. There's some sort of unspecified storm coming." And Victor's like, "No, we have to keep going." And then they are attacked by.
We have to turn back. I won't turn back. We must turn back. I will not turn back.
No, we must turn back.
We can't. You saw it on the map. Our destiny is etched in this map. My map. And I won't turn back.
You must turn back.
I won't turn back.
I checked the credits. 6 people wrote this movie.
There are 7 credited screenwriters to this movie.
And more the
which
merrier.
Explains a lot.
6 people worked on the screenplay of this movie, and none of them could make Billy Owens work.
I'm tiptoeing right up to the line of being a little bit too mean, but honestly, near the end of the movie, I did write down the note, was this screenplay written by someone for whom English is a second language? And I'm not trying, I'm desperately not trying to be mean. It's the way that the dialogue comes out feels like I'm looking at the subtitles to like an anime or something, because the way the sentence structure is placed together, I'm again, not trying to be mean, it genuinely seems like someone doesn't have a grasp of the English language. I mean, we're jumping all over here, but some of my favorite lines include, there's an air of promise in the air. Can you feel it? And, yeah, so they're attacked by a CGI dragon. How do we want to describe this dragon?
Yeah. Yeah, God, this 3D freeware animation program circa 2001 Sea Serpent.
River Beast. Yeah.
River Beast, yeah. God, like, I don't know who managed all the 3D work, but it couldn't have taken them very long.
It felt like every effect in the movie was pre-done. It was like pre-rendered, and they just found it in an archive and were just like, cut, paste here. It's sea monster.
Oh, I don't think they were pre-rendered. I think that was final. I think that was done.
It didn't look finished.
Rendered I guess is the wrong. I just mean, I feel like it was like they didn't make them. They just cut and paste them out of something. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah, I mean, like most of the special effects are just like these really cheap-looking particle effects that emit from out of a wand or like some glowing circle that'll swirl around on screen. But you know what's really funny? Like the best special effect was just this practical effect done totally in camera. There's a sequence where like the evil wizard is approaching Billy Owens in a darkened classroom, and there are these rows of desks that sort of split apart as he walked by him, like Moses parting the river. And those were just accomplished by people outside of camera pulling the desks apart as like he was walking between them. And it looked pretty cool, and it was the best looking effect in the movie.
Well, they did have the practical effect of Yoda showing up. I guess that's jumping ahead, but they did have the guy do the really bad Yoda effect in the mask.
Yeah,
right?
Jameson,
that was in camera.
What's the deal with you constantly recommending movies that have trolls in them? Because this is the second one that we've done here now, and I'm just like, I'm putting an embargo on all troll movies.
Hey man, I didn't know there'd be a fucking troll in this movie. But yeah, so after Roddy Piper and Victor are assaulted by that sea serpent, we cut to the next day, and we follow Billy Owens as he just goes about his morning routine. And today's a special day. It's his birthday. He's turning 11.
He's turning 11 on November 11th, and they really hammer this home because they say not only was he born on the 11th day of the 11th month, he was also born at like 11 o'clock exactly. And they really try to hammer that home, the idea that 11 is this all-important mystical number. This is like nitpicking to the nth degree, but I really had a problem with this introductory scene of Billy Owens, just in the sense that we see him riding his bike to his mom's work, and his mom appears to work in like a tacky gift shop / consignment store of some sort, and we're given to believe that he comes in. It feels like potentially it's the weekend or a summer break or something, but he goes to his mom's work, and then he meets up with his mom, and then his mom says, "Come on, I'll drive you to school." So I know this is a massive nitpick, but like, what? Because like, he has a dad. So the dad just didn't drive him to school. He woke up that morning, rode his bike to his mom's work. I guess the gift shop opens at like 6 a.m. And then his mom, who's already at work, leaves work to drive him to school. It seems like a small detail, but it's just emblematic of the fact that whoever was writing the screenplay didn't think about things wouldn't play out in this order.
Yeah, just like start the sequence off with like his mom dropping him off at school. There's no reason to be like showing us all these other areas of the town, like, or maybe write a thing where like, hey, Dad's hungover again. Mom, can you drop me off?
There was actually several things in that scene that I clocked. Number one, it was my first crew and mirror count. I tried to keep track of every time you saw a crew in the mirror. At 3:56, you saw the crew walking by the mirror. Also, the fact that he was aggressively touching everything really bothered me. I was like, oh, this was clearly a pre-COVID movie, you know. But he then goes on to complain about birthday pizza.
Once we officially celebrate, let me guess, birthday pizza?
Who wrote this? Because how dare you create, let alone a child, but any character that's going to be mad about birthday pizza? Like, that's just such a, you want to talk about logic setup, right? Like the idea of like, this is a useless scene that isn't necessary, but also completely dismantles any potential character setup.
It's also
the only thing that we ever really gather from Billy Owens in these sequences is that he's really miserable that today is his birthday. Yes. And the only reason for that is that this year will happen to be his royal birthday, so he's turning 11 on the 11th. What's your problem with that, kid? Like Like, oh, I'm really gonna get it from the guys at school now.
And it's the introduction to our title character, and he comes off as an ungrateful, entitled little shit, and just like,
Yes.
and he never truly gets any better throughout the movie. The kid that they got to play this movie, he just seems bored. He seems bored throughout it. It seems like he cannot wait for the shooting day to be over so he can just go and do literally anything else. They really picked a kid who seemed like he wanted to get out of doing this immediately. But then he went and made 3 more movies with the same director. So maybe he's just genuinely bad at this acting thing.
Do you know anything about the casting of these kids? Because it really felt, I mean, the entire cast felt like it, but it especially felt with the kids like this is just somebody's kid who they're throwing in front of the camera.
Yeah,
Like,
man,
it
I
didn't
told you, corkboard at the rec center. Yeah, that's how we did it.
Okay, so like, is that genuinely how they did it? Because it's certainly how it felt. You
I don't
Like,
know,
it felt-
probably. I don't know.
Right,
There's
okay.
no information about the casting
it
of
felt
this
like
movie.
maybe it was the director's son or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it felt like nobody actually wanted to be there, but the dad had this vision and really needed the kids to, you know.
Yeah, the dad had to pay off some gambling debts, so he made a movie.
Billy Owens isn't the director's son, and I only know that because the actor playing his father in the movie, they have the same last name. So his dad plays his actual dad in the movie, but that's the only familial connection that I can figure out.
Okay.
But to speed through the plot, such as it is, Billy goes to school. He has 2 friends. He has the know-it-all Hermione type, who I believe's name is Mandy. And then he has another friend who I guess is the Ron archetype. His thing is that he has allergies, he sneezes and stuff, and he can only eat soy-based products. He's the most palatable of the 3 children. There's nothing really you can say about him. It's just he's not even that good of an actor. He's just the least annoying of the 3 of them.
He's just present.
He's just present. And they have to deal...
Well, that character was everyone else's favorite annoying kids movie tropey character. The sarcastic one, whose every other line was something like, "Oh, now you tell me," or like, "Can you explain that again in English?" Or, just a delight.
All of the acting in this is just absolutely terrible across the board, but I feel like the star pupil of terrible performances has to go to the bully character. This kid was next level unchecked in. This seemed like someone who genuinely had never spoken English before.
The geek got a card from his mommy. Happy birthday to my little baby Steve Bob. Here's some money to buy yourself some diapers.
That was a real bully that they just got. And I bet you they saw in the hallway he was probably picking on someone. And they were like, "You're perfect. You're hired." You know, like.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there was that first kerfuffle that the bully and Billy Owens have, and it's like the most gentle roughhousing I've ever seen. Like, I think the opposite. I don't think that guy was a bully. I think those 2 kids were actually best friends in real life. And the bully actor is like, well, I don't really want to hurt my friend.
You could tell them they were really holding back smiles the whole shot. They couldn't help themselves.
That was every performance from these kids. They always have like a little half smirk in their faces, kind of all like, "We're acting."
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so the bully chases Billy Owens out of the school and into the town, and Billy Owens evades the bully by hiding in William Thurgood's pawn shop. And, he instantly starts making a mess, and he meets Rowdy Roddy Piper, who's just, disheveled.
There was I wrote to borrow a wrestling term, that bully was immediately gassed when he was chasing Billy. He was not having a good time. That guy was out of breath instantly. And then these are my next 2 crew and mirror shots at 11:18, crew in the mirror 2 and 3, as they're tracking him through the store. They caught him twice.
So yeah, Roddy Piper is playing our wise, wizened sort of mentor figure here. He's playing it less Dumbledore and more Tom Waits, which I am in favor for. Again, I'm kind of a fan of Roddy Piper's mumbly, raspy delivery here. I particularly liked his line where he's talking about, oh, it's your birthday, you gotta get chocolate cake and icing and ice cream. It's great.
Time waits for no man or birthdays. You got chocolate cake and icing waiting for you. My goodness, ice cream. Go get it.
You would think the old wizened magic user who runs the pawn shop, they would try and give a little bit of set dressing to this pawn shop. It's literally just a town pawn shop. It is unspectacular. To a point. It's just like you could walk into any pawn shop and it would look exactly like this. There's no production design or set dressing.
Yeah, like there really are no like magical knickknacks in this pawn shop. You would think there would be like, you know, objects that you're not really sure if they're alive or not, or like, you know, like some crystals or like super old books that like maybe will like turn around as Billy walks by them or something. But there's really nothing.
No, we got no time for that, no.
Yeah, like most of the magical elements of this movie are just sort of like sleight of hand shit. Like, Bill Owens wants to buy a wand, but he doesn't have any money. And Roddy Piper's like, check your pocket, and good news, I got a birthday discount. And then, you know, Billy Owens checks his pocket and he's got money, and he never really questions why he has money, and he never asks how Roddy Piper knows that it's his birthday.
Billy Owens questions nothing. He doesn't question shit throughout this entire movie. Like, magical shit will happen, and he's just kind of like,
But that money came from his birthday card. That's where that money came from. That's why that was in his pocket.
Fully stole it.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he got it back because the principal caught him. But I was gonna say, speaking of the character that he was doing, I thought he was doing a version of late stage Nick Nolte is what I heard. I heard him doing like Nick Nolte from Hulk.
Well, you know, Tom Waits, Nick Nolte. I mean, like, close your eyes and, I mean...
I totally.
That's a fun parlor game that we just came up with here. Put a blindfold on someone and then just play a random clip and try and guess whether it's Nick Nolte or Tom Waits. Or Roddy Piper, I guess.
Roddy is not altogether appropriate with the children.
Not at all. Roddy Piper...
He's pretty aggressive with the boys and weirdly... I don't want to say I don't want to imply anything overly, but like... He's very focused on the girl, and it was a little like,
he is.
Rodney.
The friends come in, and Billy introduces his friends, and then he kisses the little girl's hand, and I wrote down, Roddy, don't do that. Also, if you knew anything about etiquette, you would know that when you kiss someone's hand, you kiss your thumb. You don't put your lips on the flesh of another person, particularly if that person is 10. That is
exactly.
And then later on, he also, apropos of nothing, kisses the principal on the head. So, Roddy, stop kissing people. Just stop doing it.
Inappropriate, Roddy.
A little inappropriate, Roddy, yeah.
I know you're tripping on your star power in this production, Roddy, but like, come on.
He was the only guy who had security. As shown in the credit, he had security.
He had a security detail?
Yeah, they said security for Mr. Piper.
That was what they had to put in the credits, but what it really was, it was security for Mr. Piper for everyone else.
Exactly. Don't you fucking talk to me.
Yeah, Roddy had a handler, and if he got a little too touchy, that's when Elmo came in, and it's all like, all right, Roddy, let's go to Crafty. Come on, man, let's leave these people alone. I can
feel them watching me.
I'm gonna pull that back immediately. The assumption that this movie had craft services is just like out the window. They had McDonald's coupons that were like expired 10 years ago.
Yeah, so Billy Owens is the only person who's able to use his magic wand, you know, with very little training or instruction. And like when his one friend says like, magic, that's crazy. And then the Did You Know It All girl says like, modern sciences can trace their origins to magic. Which is like, what? What the hell are you talking about?
Well, this is so emblematic of how lazy this movie is. Is like the scene where, to compare it to Harry Potter, the scene where Rufus Hagrid shows up and explains to Harry that he's magical and there's like a world of wizards and whatnot. That is all covered with Roddy Piper just sort of miming and illustrating how the magic wand works, and then the little girl narrates over it, and it's her saying is all like, Mr. Thurgood Marshall explained to us, you know, like the history of magic, but we as an audience never find out what the history of magic is. The little girl just explains that someone explained to them what the history of magic is. 7 screenwriters on this, and that's the best that they could do.
I did appreciate that the magic word was please. I did really
That
like
was
that.
great.
It's nice to know the real magic is manners.
Yes. That was the thing that I kind of enjoyed the most out of this, is that the magic word was please. That's the one thing that I can never quite get into with the Harry Potter universe, is that there are all these different spells and you have to say all of these fanciful words and stuff, and the people who really buy into Harry Potter, when when they drop like an Avada Kedavra in the middle of a sentence, I'm like, okay, come on. So I did appreciate that the magic word was please. I did find that funny, but it's not consistent throughout, because sometimes he just points his wand at something and then something happens. And then at one point in time, he does say one of these bullshit magic words. He says, Polum Converticus. And it's like, wait, what the fuck is Polum Converticus? We never established what that was. I thought it was just please.
So Roddy explains to Billy that he has a destiny tied to the river and the river spirits. And I just couldn't follow this plot whatsoever. And they even had a couple of voiceovers from the girl to try to help you along, even though they didn't help. So to learn more about this, they go to the town library where they sneak around the strutting fat security guard. They gotta stay until after closing so they can get into the records room, which is off limits to anyone under 18 because, I don't know, it's triple X rated or something.
Although I will say I get why they had to be 18 because of the way they were treating that machine. The way they were just haphazardly poking at it. I was like, yeah, I wouldn't want fucking kids dealing with that either, you know? At the same time too, though, I did also write in that moment, I wrote, every adult in this film is a predator. Because every single one of them, that guard, I would not be leaving my kids alone with that guard. I'll tell you that much.
The security guard is yet another example of when he first showed up on screen. He kind of did his little strut. I'm all like, oh, okay, we have the dumb security guard. This will be fun. We can poke fun at how dumb this guy is. This is the perfect example of a character who, as the movie went on, I'm all like, no, we actually can't make fun of this character. He's playing it too dumb. And, if we were to poke fun at this character, again, he's playing it like he has some sort of developmental disability. He's playing it the character doesn't say a word. The character doesn't have a single line of dialogue. But he has scenes with the kids, and they're just purely quiet scenes where he's just he turns around and he flashes his flashlight at them, and he whips around again. So he's trying to do a Kevin James thing.
So if the library closed, the kids are staying after hours and they're walking to the records room. Could the security guard not see them when they were directly in front of him? We didn't see them cast an invisibility spell.
This is the thing. This security guard, he has video game logic. If we were playing the Billy Owens video game, there would be the level where you evade the security guard and the AI would be standing right in front of you, but because he's not within your cone of vision, he's all I don't know what's going on. It's Metal Gear Solid rules with the security guard.
It's funny that you mentioned that the security guard was silent, because the only line I clocked him say is a very loud and very pronounced fuck when he was when he was locked, when the doors were locked and he couldn't open them, and he went fuck.
Oh, I hope you're right about that. I would love it if they snuck an F-bomb into this movie.
I wouldn't put it past
I think because he was there were so many moments, and this happens throughout the whole movie, where there's so many moments of vamping, right? Where they're just supposed to be sort of ad-libbing, and so he's clearly fuck, and then
and you can tell part of the problem is they gave this actor no direction. You're just you're the wacky security guard. So all right, I guess I'll just do a lot of head bobs and but it read to a point where it's all okay, this guy's probably very nice and he probably tries very hard. So it's again, you made your character too dumb, and I felt bad about making fun of him.
Of everyone from this small town who appeared in this movie, this guard is played by a guy who is just completely beloved by all the townsfolk. Totally. Oh, you should put George in the movie. Oh, he'll be a riot. And yeah. So at this point in the movie, Billy finally meets the evil sorcerer Victor, who also is apparently a teacher at their school.
Yeah, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, and he's apparently partnered up with the bully.
Yeah,
They combined their forces to go after Billy
I
Owens.
guess these characters are in cahoots, even though there's no reason for them to team up other than they're, I guess, the central antagonists. And
they have a common enemy in Billy Owens.
There was zero scene setting up why these characters are working together. It's just, there's an early scene where we see that Mr. Mold is a teacher at this school, and he seems to be a friendly, non-antagonistic character. The only thing we've seen up until this point was him and Roddy in the boat before the credits, and now all of a sudden they are both at the library and they are openly antagonizing the three kids, and they're all like, give us the book, Billy, haha, I'm the evil wizard.
In the opening credits scene, I thought that was a scene from like old-timey times. Like, I thought this was like a previous generation from before. And then when I saw the same actor as the teacher, I thought, oh, cool, okay, this is like a generations thing. He's like the descendant of the guy who died in the boat. Because it was unclear what happened to the boat, so I thought that maybe the guy got eaten by the dragon and now it's his, grandson or great-grandson or whatever. And then Roddy shows up and he's just the same guy, and it's like, okay, this is unclear. And then he shows up as the bad guy with no clarification other than that one. They did a scene while they were in the library where it was the bad guy and Roddy Piper supposed to be in the shop, but they weren't filming in the shop. They were in front of a blue screen and they were magic fighting. But I didn't understand anything that they were saying. I couldn't understand any of the dialogue that they were saying. They were just yelling with particle effects. Right?
I understood one thing that they were saying. Now, I had never heard of this movie before you suggested it for the podcast, Jameson, but this is an excellent example of how memification can pass down over generations, because I was not familiar with this. There was a line that Roddy Piper said that as soon as he said, I'm all like, oh, I've heard that before. Where the hell have I heard that before? And it was the line of the movie where Roddy Piper says,
your soul was lost in the river.
That is truly this movie's You're Tearing Me Apart, Lisa, because I don't know where I heard that.
When I first watched the trailer for this movie, I knew exactly why I wanted to watch this movie.
I don't know where I picked that up before, but I definitely heard that somewhere before.
I love it.
I didn't realize it was from this, and I didn't realize it was Roddy Piper who said it, but I guess everything's intersected now. The circle of crap is complete.
So the kids get away from the evil sorcerer, and the next day the school is completely covered in vines, and the whole town is flipping out about it.
I never saw the vines. They just talked about the vines. Did either of you see?
I saw, so there was an establishing shot of the school, and then there's some weird CGI where it looks like black licorice is slowly creeping up the side of the school, and then we cut to a scene of Mr. Mold looking out the window and smiling evilly, and then we cut to a reporter interviewing the principal, is saying like, where did all these vines come from? It's all like, and then she has something to say with like, oh, the environmentalism, the river is taking things back, hopefully you'll take, and that's it. That's all the setup we get for these vines, which are apparently overtaking the school. I mean, it made me laugh where later on, the principal, who I feel like I need to point out the name of this character is Principal Gwendolyn Cups, which is objectively a great name. No matter who you are, that Principal Gwendolyn Cups is a fantastic name for any character to have.
It really is.
But she tries to sneak in. The budget for this is so low. There's a scene later where Gwendolyn Cups, I guess, tries to investigate the vines on the outside of the school, and she's ushered away by 2 policemen and an entire hazmat team who seem to just be focusing on one single vine that's outside of this school. This entire hazmat team just for this one thing.
That's the scene that I was thinking about. I wrote down, holy shit, they got cops. Look at Mr. Big Budget. because those are real cops. That is a real crime scene that they have set up. But they did it. They got a fire truck. Like, there are moments in this movie where it's like, holy shit, how did they get this set up? Same thing just beforehand with the gym class. Like, they're just filming this gym class of chaos. And it's like, how did they, how do you do that? How do you just, set up a camera in a school and you're just like, oh, by the way, we're making a movie, as you were, like, it's incredible. It's kind of, I respect it. I respect the hustle.
Yeah, I kind of wish we knew a little bit more about the production side of things, because it really seems like most of this was just, like, guerrilla filmmaking.
Right.
Or, like, they blackmailed a couple of people into using their stores.
Maybe
and
that's
their
how
buildings.
that principal got in the movie, is that she was like, you can shoot here, but I have to be a star. Maybe that's how that works.
Yeah, so the principal turns out to be magical, and she becomes this movie's sort of Professor McGonagall mentor character.
They don't all have Harry Potter archetypes, but whatever. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Do you think every adult in this town is magical? Because so far every adult we've met in this movie is magical.
It turns out every single one of them is magical.
Well, certainly Billy's parents, because Billy goes through this thing where he gets like a magic wand and he tries to keep his newfound magic from his parents, but then a scene sort of like plot near the end of it, it's revealed, no, both of his parents are aware of magic. Are we going to spend any time explaining any of this? No, we have to keep going. We have to keep this plot moving along. Yeah, it does seem like every adult is somewhat aware of the fact that there's magic in the world. There's truly no secret world of magic whatsoever. It just kind of seems like everyone already knows.
Yeah, and it's Billy's destiny to stop the river dragon from destroying this town. Why? Why is it this one kid's responsibility to fight this monster when you have a town full of wizards?
And why is no one helping him? Like, Roddy sends, like, the three kids off on, like, this journey. They go through, like, a portal where they meet, like, a little gnome and or troll, and they're threatened by the villains, and then they escape, and they come back to the pawn shop, and they're all like, okay, we figured out the next thing we need to do. We need to have a boat. And he's all like, oh, the boat's out back. And then it cuts to them going down by the pier, and Roddy's not with them. Why isn't Roddy helping them? He is the adult in the situation, and he's just very hands-off.
Well, it's because the shop burnt down, though. Remember, the shop burnt down, and he got taken away in an ambulance.
It didn't, though. It was on fire.
But I was going to say, though, that in that fire was actually, I felt like that was Roddy Piper's best scene, and I wrote down, Roddy always was known to be a great seller. Because he sells the smoke, and he's weak, and he's gotta be helped out, and he's so like, I gotta say, that was the only scene in the entire movie that I bought something was happening, and they even managed to book an ambulance.
Somebody just dialed 911 and faked an emergency, and they're like, "Oh,
they did. They got a fire truck, a cop car, and an ambulance."
Roddy Piper?
Oh, sure, I'd do anything for Rowdy Piper. But yeah, so the pawn shop does burn down, but to really no payoff, because as we're told, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, the pawn shop just rebuilds itself overnight, and we're back to business.
And also, like, the setup for this is weird too. So Billy and his friends are hanging out at Billy's house, and then they look out the window, and they can see the pawn shop on fire across the neighborhood from there. But rather than stay at home and phone 911, Billy's parents let the three children leave unaccompanied in seemingly the middle of the night, and then no fire truck happens until Billy bicycles over to the pawn shop himself. Like, none of the neighbors, I guess, called the fire department to say, hey, the pawn shop next to me is literally on fire right now. And Roddy's just inside the pawn shop, dying of smoke inhalation, and seemingly nothing happens until Billy Owens comes and deals with the situation himself. It's all on Billy's shoulders.
So now the movie starts ramping up, but it really doesn't. Like, I mean, they go through the magic portal, and they find themselves in, like, this other realm, and they're like, oh, this doesn't look anything like home, and like bullshit, it doesn't. It looks exactly like the shitty woods just on the outskirts of town.
Well, they try and convey it, because the movie is like set during the spring. They try and convey that they're in a different place because they're transported to a new place, and then there's snow everywhere. And I guess, like, oh, snow on the ground. Okay, well, we're in, like, Magic Land now, I guess.
Yeah, and so here is where they meet a little Yoda troll creature with a Warcraft mask.
That's what that is. Was it Warcraft? I couldn't tell if it was Warhammer or Warcraft.
Yeah, well, the mask was like, it wasn't really proportional. Like, that mask was too big for his tiny frame. He was like a a walking candy apple.
So, I don't know if either of you noticed this. The really weird thing I noticed about the moment with the troll is that obviously all of the troll's dialogue was recorded through ADR, but it's so obvious that every scene in this movie was the first and only take that they did, that the ADR doesn't sync up with the dialogue of the other actors.
Because they talk over each other.
Yeah, very obviously, the troll is still in the middle of explaining something, and then the little know-it-all girl interrupts him as he's still talking. So it's like they timed out the dialogue for the other actors, but they didn't get the timing right, and then they just never fixed it, and they kept it in the movie.
Could you help us?
I'm here to warn you of the dangers found beyond the river.
In the lair? Is it your lair?
It's Nemesius's, and I fear even the speaking
Well, we're not
of
afraid.
his name. You will be.
Look, we've only come to help Spirit River.
Do you not seek to treasure the power found within Loki's scepter?
What scepter?
Well, because the troll even had to sort of ad-lib of yeah, let me finish, you know?
Yeah, and because it was ADR, this is something that they clearly noticed in post-production and could have easily fixed, like, in that time and, like, shot and, like, maybe did some workarounds to it, but they didn't.
This is what I'm saying, though, when I say that it's like, it's moments like this that make me remember making films in university or in high school and stuff like that. Like I remember this one really infamous one. We a bunch of my buddies in university, it was maybe like third year, we got like super stoned and decided we were going to make a little short film in the park out behind my buddy's apartment. And we shot all afternoon and we shot and shot and shot. And then we got home and we were, the one buddy who's good at editing was splicing it all together. And we realized in the dead center of the movie, like just this like wild inconsistency happened. Like it was like the whole setup beforehand, this character had no bag, and then suddenly in one shot he had this big heavy backpack on, and then in the very next shot the backpack's gone, you know. But it was the only shot we had, and we needed that shot to keep going with the movie. So out of nowhere, he had a backpack on for one shot, and it's like you kind of I get the film school impulse, right? But it's also like
you're a bunch of amateurs, right? And you never had like any intention of like making your little fun movie a publicly available wide release, and the vitality of a town isn't like resting on the shoulders of this movie doing well. There are no stakes to like home movies.
I mean, I would agree with you on that point, Jameson, apart from the fact that famous wrestler Roddy Piper is in this movie. If it were just a movie starring all of these nobodies, then I would buy that. But the fact that you have a legitimate celebrity in this film, someone along the way the whole purpose of making this movie must have been to release it and to make some sort of money on it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put a very famous person in the movie.
So the troll points them in the right direction, and they go to this cave where Billy Owens has to kill the dragon before the next full moon or whatever. Otherwise, like, it can't be killed once it crosses over into the human realm. This is all explained in voiceover shit.
They take a sword from a corpse, and then the skeleton man starts waking up, and this was the one moment in the movie where I allowed myself to get a little bit excited. Like when the skeleton warrior kind of started shifting them all, like, oh, the skeleton's coming to life. This could maybe be interesting. It's not. They do the most obvious shit that they do with it, but for a millisecond, I'm all like, something interesting is happening? But no.
There's a thing that happens with because they mentioned earlier this thing about Loki's scepter. They mentioned offhandedly somewhere in the background about a scepter that, like a trickster thing. And they've never used the word scepter before until they mention that. And then they go to this skeleton and they say, oh, it's a scepter. And something weird happens with Billy's wand and the scepter, but then they just leave it.
Yeah.
They just drop
leave it
and they
there.
keep walking.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't figure out what was happening or what the point, like, was that Loki's scepter? Like, what was happening?
Well, presumably the answer to that question will be answered in the sequel movie, because jumping ahead to the end, sort of the last thing that happens before the credits happen is the bully kid gets left in the cave, and then he picks it up and he turns into a little goblin character, and then it says to be continued. So presumably the scepter will carry over into Billy Owens 2. Who could care?
Can I just say about that corpse Draugr costume? For this movie, it was pretty good.
Yeah, big time.
Like, it was too good for this movie.
It was the most expensive costume they could find at Party Central. They blew all the budget of this movie on the skeleton.
Way too realistic and professionally made. Like, I would have just assumed, like, oh, there's a skeleton in this cave in this movie, and it would just be like a science class chalk white skeleton model. But no, it's something that they probably just got from a film studio when they are having like a fire sale of all their old costumes and props. But yeah, so the kids cross this Bridge of Doom. They solve this Norse god puzzle room where the walls were closing in on them, and then they have a final climactic battle against the evil Victor and the river dragon that is over in like a nanosecond.
Now,
one swoop.
Does Victor Mold become the serpent? Because he shows up and he's all like, "You'll never escape Billy Owens and friends." And then the dragon shows up, but then after the dragon shows up, Victor is out of the movie. We don't see what happens to him. He just disappears, and like the serpent doesn't even like attack them in any way. It just moves around. It's all like, I'm the CG monster. And then Billy points his wand at it, and then it retreats back into the darkness. And then then the kid with zero charisma says something along the lines of all like, "Class dismissed." And then the river is saved. The river is saved. Everyone's happy.
He's eaten? Do you think the teacher's eaten by the dragon?
Or crushed?
If that happens, the movie doesn't show us.
Maybe it was the same thing with that kid with the allergies that he did with the Draugr creature. You know, he picks up the sword and he has like one slash and it taps the guy and he dissolves in like the shittiest static effect. Like, maybe he did the exact same thing with Victor Mold. And we didn't notice because everything just happened so fast.
I mean, this is the primary evil wizard antagonist of the movie, and he gets no comeuppance. He just disappears from the movie, and he's not intimidating, and he's not scary. It's not helped by the fact that this actor resembles the character Rickety Cricket from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I bet you this is like the town actor, and he was like the first guy to sign on for this movie when he saw like the posted board at the community center.
He's the guy who, like, in their small town, he gets all the leads because he's the only guy they can cast.
Fucking Paul Germs is in this, so of course he's the first to sign up. Paul Germs. I cannot get over the fact that is that guy's name.
That is a stage name for sure.
All right. Are there any specific moments that happened in the movie that we didn't cover that you want to talk about, highlight here? Any yays, any yucks, any to borrow terminology from your podcast, James, were there any fine wines or squirts? It's mostly squirts in this.
It's a big squirt. It's a big squirt movie. Yeah.
It's a big squirt movie.
Yeah. No. I mean, I can't say there were any fine wines because nothing aged, right? It was, oh boy, what was good? I mean, I think the thing that was good was, Roddy Piper selling. I think that him selling the smoke inhalation was the highlight for me. And then just like, you know what? These people, they tried. They got out there. They had a fun time. I did like the blooper reel. I liked knowing that they were having fun.
Didn't watch it. Movie. Couldn't care. Yeah. Couldn't care that. I stopped the movie. Jameson, you texted me, "Oh, there's a blooper reel." I'm like, I'm out. I don't care. I'm out.
I'm not gonna lie, it was charming.
There's an original song during the credits. It's like Bad Sarah McLachlan.
Yep.
There's an amazing outtake where Roddy Piper forgets his lines and just starts ranting about hot dogs and mustard.
The legacy of Spirit River is the very same legacy that brought them doggone people with the hot dogs and the mustard.
Yeah, it was like one of those, like, you could tell it was like you say, it was like one of those, like, the whole town just enjoyed it. They must have gotten together and watched it and laughed and loved it, and it's fine, you know, and if they're happy, then cool. Who am I to shit on that? But,
yeah, it's really wholesome in that way. This reminded me of a movie that we watched around Halloween last year, Kaz, Siege of Evil, which was very similarly, like, next to no budget, cast with just a bunch of amateurs, but Billy Owens seemed to have, like, a bit more care and forethought put into it. They certainly had, like, a better quality camera to shoot everything with.
I don't agree with that, but that's fine.
A couple of things here. There were a lot of really baffling lines in this movie. Like, there's this one part where the kids open this magic spell book, and all these like hieroglyphs or whatever are glowing on the page, and one of the kids is like, I don't get it. It looks like math. And
Yeah.
I'm right there with you, kid. I don't get it either, and I was never much...
Yeah, I want to meet the kid that sees a bunch of, like, ancient Egyptian drawings of, like, a man going like this and all like, that looks like math. Hieroglyphics look nothing like math. They are pictures. There's no numbers involved.
And there's a part near the end where they're walking through the cave, and the little girl notices something painted on the cave walls, and she's like, oh, shine the light up. I want to read it. And as far as I can tell, there was nothing on that rock. There was like no lettering, no hieroglyphics. It was just a rock, and she wanted to read it.
Yeah, right? She was trying to describe what was written, but it was like, I don't know what you're seeing there, little guy. Like, there's nothing there.
I want to highlight my favorite line in the movie. This is the line that literally made me pause the movie for like 10 minutes because I had to process the line. Like, I couldn't quite believe, and it's another example of, it's two lines back to back, and it's another example of the little girl busting out like a fun fact in a moment that doesn't support it. It's when the three kids are around Billy's breakfast table with his parents, and it's been revealed that maybe the parents are magical, or at the very least the parents are aware that there's magic. And they're sort of ramping up to the fact that's like, no, this is your destiny, Billy, and you guys, you have to go on this adventure, and I know it's scary, but you'll be fine. And then the little girl is kind of nervous, and she says,
"Did you know that octopi change their color when they're frightened?"
To which Billy's mom responds with,
"Did you know that friendship is the strongest bond between two friends?"
And I had to stop watching the movie. I couldn't handle that. I legitimately could not handle that line of dialogue.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's the whole movie.
All right, so we were already doing this episode a little bit different in the sense that, we watched the movie before we recorded. I want to continue on trying something new here, something that we haven't yet done on this show, but I wanted to give it a chance here. I've come up with a little quiz. I've come up with a little quiz. I've come up with 3 questions for you guys, and it's a quiz all about the filmography of Roddy Piper. So I have 3 questions for you here. It's a multiple choice things. So I'll list them off here, and then you guys try and guess which one is the correct answer, okay? Okay, so the first question is, which of these is not the name of a character played by Roddy Piper? So your options are A, Yoakum the bartender, B, Oscar Wilde, C, Rattlesnake Rabinowitz, and D, Homeless George.
I'm gonna say Rattlesnake Rabinowitz or whatever.
I'm gonna go Homeless George.
You were correct, Jameson. The Rattlesnake Rabinowitz is a name that I came up with. He played Yoakum the bartender in Shut Up and Shoot. He played Homeless George in The Portal. And he played Oscar Wilde in The Green Fairy, which is a documentary about absinthe.
Wow.
All right, question 2. Which comic book property has Roddy Piper been a part of? A, Doctor Strange, B, Green Lantern, C, Ghost Rider, or D, Plastic Man?
I think I know this. I think he was in one of the Green Lantern animated movies.
That is correct, Jameson. You are 2 for 2, yes. He was in Green... He gave a voice to Green Lantern Emerald Knights. He played Red Lantern Bolfunga the Unrelenting.
Oh.
All right, final question. Which of these is not the title of a film Roddy Piper has been in? Number 1, A, Legless Larry and the Lipstick Lady, B, Pizza Man, C, Adventures of a Pizza Guy, and D, Super Sweet 16 the movie.
I want to say A because you were so proud of it.
Yeah, Leapin' Larry, or whatever the fuck you said.
I apologize, gentlemen, I've deceived you. Those are all movies that Roddy Piper has been in.
Oh. Rigged.
It's like a wrestling match. It was predetermined for us to fail.
That's why I did it. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've come to the point in time in the podcast where we ask the question, gentlemen, would you recommend The Mystical Adventures of Billy Owens?
Of course not.
No,
Not a chance.
This was awful. This was a terrible movie.
I mean,
I actually resent you both a little bit because you made me watch it.
We've lost a longtime fan, Kaz.
look, this is the point where I'm immediately going to throw you under the bus, Jameson, where 2 nights ago, I desperately tried to chicken out of watching this movie, and I suggested another Roddy Piper movie, and you pointedly returned with like, no, I have my heart set on Billy Owens. I think this will be good for our page. It'll be good to have like a fantasy movie on the podcast. So, was it worth it?
Yeah, just because like wrestler in an action movie is kind of predictable.
Was it worth it? Are you pleased with yourself?
What was I thinking?
Yeah. No, I mean, Jameson, we just got done ranking the 50 movies that we've covered on this podcast. We ranked Siege of Evil second to last because it was incompetent, and we ranked The Telephone dead last because it was annoying. This was incompetent and annoying, so, let's just go ahead and say 51 on the list is The Mystical Adventures of Billy Owens. This is probably the worst thing we've watched so far.
Yeah, this was, pretty bad.
Wow, this is the worst movie you've watched? That's an honor. I feel a little honored to be a part of this. I'm part of, the F is This history,
Yeah. Well, we have 2 more movies planned, for this current, streak of WrestleMania movies, and I have to say, we've got a movie currently on the docket that, just looking at it, I feel like might give Billy Owens a run for his money. That's a little preview for what's to come here. We'll see what happens. We'll see if what's coming up is significantly worse or better than The Mystical Adventure of Billy Owens. But anyway, let's wrap this fucker up. James Avramenko, thank you for being on the show. Please plug your many things. You have 2 wonderful podcasts. You have Friendless,
sure.
Where you talk to all of your current Facebook friends, and then at the end of it, you defriend them. But over the course of the podcast, you have these wonderful introspective conversations about their life. And you also have the podcast that you have with the wife, past guest Jenica Grinke, Raised by the Movies, where you are currently going through the Disney Renaissance.
Yes, yeah, so Friendless is, like you say, Friendless is all about, it's centered around Facebook and, how it affects our friendships and our connections, especially these days with COVID and things like that. But, it's a super fun show, where I interview friends from my past and we discuss what it means to be a friend, our friendship, how we can be better friends, and then at the end of the show, I unfriend them off of Facebook, and we sort of decide how or if we're going to stay in touch in the past. Kaz has actually you've been a guest in the past. You are an alumnus.
And naturally, we have not spoken since, because that's how social media works.
We likely won't. So. And then, the other show, Raised by the Movies, is about my wife and I, we rewatch movies from our past to discuss how they messed up our future. So it's the idea of like discussing, the weird morals and the weird lessons and all the characters and the way media sort of shapes us as children into the adults we become. So the whole first series has been about the Disney Renaissance, the 1989 to 1999, but we're actually just finished that. Literally after we finish recording this episode, we're actually going to be recording our own show. We're doing some one-offs. So the next one is, when does this episode come out? When are we going to be?
Probably a week from now.
Okay. So it'll be out by then. So we're going to be doing Jurassic Park.
Nice.
And that's my favorite movie of all time. I could watch it every day for the rest of my life, and I would never get bored of it. So we're doing Jurassic Park, and then all kinds of fun stuff. And they're just 2 really fun shows, and they're meant to be lighthearted and introspective and philosophical, but at the same time too fun and light and a bit of escape from the dreary of our anxiety-ridden existence. Should I also plug, like, I write? I'm a writer.
Yes,
You can
please
get,
plug your books, your collections of
so
poetry.
I thank you. So you can go to friendlesspod.com, and that's where you can find information for this stuff. There's also links to, there should be links to, my book. It's called Butthead, and it is a collection of poems that I wrote over the course of about the last decade or so, just about anxiety and social alienation and feeling kind of dumb, even around people who you love. And, there, again, it's not meant to be Trotsky. It's not meant to be like Russian literature. Like it's just supposed to be fun and lighthearted and with little overtones of melancholy, right?
That's the pull quote on the back of the book. The fun poetry, not Trotsky.
Exactly. I may be still getting an ice pick to the brain at some point in my life, but that'll be the one thing we share in common.
I mean, you do have a very Trotsky-esque beard right now, so it's like
exactly.
eventually.
I also have very Trotsky-esque politics, so
Well, earlier when you were saying that when you're talking about like your familiarity with Harry Potter and like you're influenced by Mick Foley, and it's like, well, I can definitely see like facially where the Hagrid and Mick Foley influences left their mark.
Jameson, anything to plug or recommend this week?
Nothing so much of my own work to promote, but to sort of get into the spirit of WrestleMania, I watched a Netflix documentary not too long ago called "You Cannot Kill David Arquette," and I didn't really know what to expect with that, but what it chronicles is sort of where David Arquette has wound up in the aftermath of like him gaining like a wrestling title in the late 90s or early 2000s or whatever, and the fans just like completely turned on him and said like he didn't deserve it or anything, and sort of how like his acting career is like sort of spiraled, and how he got himself sober and wound up like taking wrestling lessons and wanting to find like redemption in the eyes of wrestling fans. And he had like this incredible independent run, and then he had like a brush with death. The movie really picks up about the time where he goes into Mexico to learn how to train with luchadors, and that is how I discovered the concept of like street wrestling, which is where these luchadors will just like have like an impromptu match in the middle of a road during like a red light, and then they just like panhandle to everyone else. But yeah, it's a great movie. I highly recommend it.
We should think of doing a luchador movie one of these years on WrestleMania. That's a whole genre. That's a whole genre that I know nothing about, but I know is massive. I know it is. It is akin in Mexico to like the Marvel films, the whole luchador world.
Those guys like the big guys, the big mask guys are like you say, like they're action stars, they're romance stars. They're not in niche movies. They're in like the fucking movies. It's really cool.
So in the interest of plugging the works of other people, this is something that I planned to do on the Accidental Love episode, and then I forgot to write down all the details. So I'm going to take the opportunity here to plug two other podcasts that are hosted by past guests of this show. The first one that I want to talk about is a new podcast on Apple Podcasts called Project Happy, hosted by Caitlin McCarthy and past guest Paula Burrows. It's a podcast where they're spending 12 months living by the wisdom of Gretchen Rubin's The Happiness Experience. Will changing small habits truly make them happier? Paula thinks so, but Caitlin's not so sure. So search for Project Happy on Apple Podcasts. And also, past guest Montana Rosal has started a new podcast, or I guess a live show on his Twitch channel, which is called They Could Be Heroes, which is an improvised comedy Twitch show about 4 teens from a village that have never seen pain, suffering, or even death. So it's a live improvised Dungeons and Dragons show, and you can find that on twitch.tv/NeoSpife. I'll include the link to that in there too. So yeah, Paula and Montana, two very talented, two very funny people. We loved having them as guests, and I'm very excited to check out all of their podcast stuff. So make sure you listen to those.
It's funny. Paula went to UVic for a cup of coffee when I was there, so I knew her in passing. She was there for like a year and left. She's awesome. Paula rules.
She's the best. Yeah, she was an early guest on the show, and of course, she's blowing up in the voiceover industry right now. If anyone listening has still not checked out The Dragon Prince on Netflix, she's one of the stars of The Dragon Prince, which is a great animated show.
And I'm a little choked that, given, like, who she is, I'm surprised that our episode with her doesn't have a higher view count.
Well, you know what? We'll just have to see if her and Caitlin want to come back on the show at some point, because they have something to plug now. But anyway, that was the Mystical Adventures of Billy Owens, directed by Mark McNabb. If you enjoyed this episode, please have your data mined over on our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter at @the_F_is_this. For info on when new episodes drop, follow us on Instagram at @the_F_is_this_podcast. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, we also have a YouTube page where we also post episodes, but with pictures. And now, with our episodes...
and hey, if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can check us out on Spotify, so you can, like, listen to us while you're driving. You never throw a bone to the people that may be watching this episode on YouTube.
Don't listen to this episode on YouTube while you're driving. And if you are, don't watch the accompanying video. Please, eyes on the road. But now, to wrap things up with our episode-specific catchphrase, Jameson Rafter, you have so many lines to choose from.
Yeah, but really, there's only one. Your soul was lost in the river!